when I was a child, my father was completely disabled with rheumatoid arthritis, like so crippled that he couldn't move, walk, anything. And that was after a very stressful event. And over the course of my entire childhood, he recovered from that completely disabled state to more functional. But the way that he was able to manage it was managing his stress, managing his diet, like being very particular about eating this and not that, being very particular about having a certain amount of activity, being very particular about understanding the impact of stress in his life. And that was something that was, I'm 9, 10 years old, taking in these lessons, and also knowing that it was hereditary to have rheumatoid arthritis or lupus from his side of the family. And for me, it was super important to find something that could help me mitigate or postpone that type of event in my life. And so that was why I decided to, I didn't eat refined sugar when I was a kid. Fruit was dessert. I didn't, eat red meat or pork when I was a kid. I mean, it's just lots of habits were established very young. And when I was in college, I was able to kind of explore yoga, in a very rudimentary way. When I went to my first class, I realized that I had been doing it like naturally as a kid, as a child athlete, and spending hours just sitting and stretching and moving and having a lot of kind of, interoceptive development that I was doing on my own. And so I realized that I was doing yoga and it had already been a part of my life for a long time. So that was kind of the event that led me to down the path. And it got even more solidified after college when I moved into a house with some roommates, and they practiced yoga every day, a very regimented Ashtanga yoga. It had, a very specific moves that you did every single time, every single day. It was a 90-minute sequence. So it was a commitment. And, having that Ashtanga practice in community was something that was really important to me as well. It helped me deepen my practice or my idea about yoga being in my life. And it was really interesting because a year later I was in the army and in Iraq, and soldiers we were on the fob and they were wondering if I knew anybody who could teach a yoga class. And I was like, well, I'm not a certified instructor, but I have a pretty strong practice. I've been doing a lot of yoga. So I started teaching at the fob, like there was like an open space, and we would just go every Sunday and go out, and I would teach a class. It was a little bit of Pilates, a little bit of yoga. And we did that for almost the whole deployment. And what was really interesting is about 2/3 of the way through the deployment, the soldiers that had asked me, they lost their first sergeant to an IED. And, he was a first sergeant in our battalion. He was in a different company, but knowing that they had the memorial service in the same space we had been practicing yoga for all of that time. And for me, it was very meaningful to have cultivated some sense of like equanimity, or some sense of being okay when things are not okay with our yoga practice, and having that be in the same space where we were honoring our first sergeant. And so that was something that it left a mark with me, and it stayed with me until this day. That's really kind of, when I think about soldiers in yoga, I think about that time period, my first deployment to Iraq back in 2005, and how that has really kind of carried me through the path that I've been on.